So keep in mind all of these dashboards that we put together, these are done in Tableau version 8. And as you can see, we ended up having to create something like 35 different worksheets within Tableau. So there's a very large amount of data. It was quite a challenge when initially putting these things together because of the amount of data that's in there. So what we have here is refined over many iterations of what is the most relevant information. So the first dashboard that we're really looking at here is what we call the status dashboard, or the manager dashboard. It's designed to give you really short view of the numbers. So you're not dealing with a lot of the details of impressions and clicks and individual ads, as most managers probably are not going to care about that to that level of detail. But what we're showing you here is we're showing you the weekly cost of the ad program, as well as the cumulative cost across all of time. So you'll see that from this particular area, we had a peak over here where the weekly cost was $2,500. The total program cost $45,000. This is over about looks like about a 2-year period. You will notice ROI over here. So we listed that on a spend of $45,000, $421,000 in revenue was generated. Very nice ROI there, 832%. So that is obviously very helpful for most managers. They want to know what are they getting for that expenditure. You'll also notice down below, we take our scatter plot here and we give some information on there. So you can look in there and see, for example, that on the Google search network, you're getting an ROI of 778%. Compare that to, for example, the display network. Not nearly as good a performance there, about a third of the performance, 268%. Still not bad, but certainly you are getting a lot better return on your money for the Google search. You'll also notice we talked about the hierarchy. So in here we can actually drill down, and let's say we want to now look at this by campaign instead of by network. So we can change that to campaign, let our screen update itself, and now you'll see that in the scatter plot now we have all of the different campaigns. There's some old legacy campaigns that were kind of lumped together, and then there's some targeted campaigns for geography. So in here you can actually hover over those as well and see what your ROI was for any given campaign that was implemented, as well as they're also colored by conversion rate. So those with the green color, those have the best conversion rate, and those with the red color have the worst conversion rate. As with most things in Tableau, you can highlight individual items there. You can choose to view the underlying data. If you then wanted to take this data and paste this into Excel to do further analysis, you'd be able to do that. So this becomes very handy. That really is a good overview of the manager's dashboard. And you'll notice that some of the functionality, the way that it works, is fairly consistent across the dashboards, which we find is fairly important so that people don't have to learn things from scratch every time they do this. So let's go back and look at network again. This up here should look fairly familiar. It's very similar to the other scatter plot we were just looking at. But what you will notice here is that in addition to showing what the cost versus revenue, so this gives you a rough idea of what's the relationship in your return on your investment. Again, we're still looking at the 800% ROI. We can actually look down there by week now. So we break this data down and we show, for example, the costs for this week were about $1,300, whereas the revenue was about $17,000, which gave us a profit of $15,000, which is about 1,200%. So this was a very good week. You will notice that there are some weeks where there was no revenue. Fortunately, they're very small. So in this case, there was no revenue generated on this week, and then so the overall week was a loss. So you can take this and you can start to overlay this with your campaigns as you release them, so that you can see what impact did our different campaign have on our conversion rate. Did it go well? Did it impact the numbers that we were looking at? So that would be what we would call the ROI dashboard, and obviously that's a very important dashboard. But then if you want to ask more questions, you need to get down into more detail. So let's now take a look at this, and let's break this down by individual ads. So keeping in mind that the way the organization of AdWords works, you would underneath ads, some of them would be Google search ads, and they would have keywords associated with them. Keywords are broken out into a separate dashboard, which we'll go over here in just a second. So this dashboard is one level higher than that and deals with the ad level. So this includes not just keywords, this also includes display ads that you may be using. and includes search partners for the, like the double-click networks and that sort of stuff. So what we're showing here is we're actually showing over time, and you'll notice that we actually have an animation control here that allows us to step through time. So if I take that all the way back to the left, I can now start moving through time, and you'll notice that, for example, your cost to conversion history, these numbers will start to grow. And if I hover over there, you have all of the numbers that you need. You have the cumulative activity, total number of impressions, click-throughs. You can see your performance ratios that we talked about, CTR, CVR, as well as your financials, including your ROI, your cost per numbers. And you'll actually see as we move through here then, as you step through, this goes week by week, as you step through here, these numbers will change. So if you wanted to compare one week to another week, you certainly can do that. So let's keep on moving through here. You'll notice the numbers keep getting larger and larger over there on these. So this synchronizes all of these dashboards. So you can play back your activity over time. And this is usually pretty helpful. For example, if we want to take, it's pretty obvious here that based on the size of this, which is impressions, that there's something big going on here. So we can actually click on that. And first of all, we start to get a history. We can see whether, is this an exponential growth? Is this a fairly organic growth for our AdWords campaign? So let's step through there and watch that as it changes. So keep on stepping through. We'll step through a little bit faster. Looks like that one actually stopped. So let's take a look at one that is moving around. So, Toronto Crime Academy is, in this case, this particular ad. So let's move that over. And you can see that it keeps on growing, it keeps on moving over there. We can keep on clicking on that. So this shows the historical performance of conversion versus cost. The perfect combination within here would actually be high on the conversion scale but low on the cost scale. So if you had, as this one is, unfortunately, as it moves over, if it goes at a 45-degree angle, that means the cost is going up at the same rate the conversions are going up. That would actually, while that's acceptable, that's not the ideal situation. A bad situation would be if your history showed that your cost went up really high, really quickly, and your conversions didn't. That probably tells you your keywords aren't being targeted very well, or there's a lot of competition for what your keywords are. Whereas if you see that your plot shows that you're low on the cost scale but high on conversions, so in the lower right-hand quadrant, any campaigns that are down there, those are working well for you. They're generating a lot of conversions but not a lot of cost. So anything that shows up in that lower right-hand quadrant, that is a good candidate for putting more focus on that because that is doing well for you. I'm actually going to put this slider all the way to the end so we can see, at the end of time. Because the other element that we have here that I wanted to highlight is the trend by campaign. So this takes the ads, rolls it up to the campaign level, and then shows you what the trend of that particular campaign is versus what the actuals of that campaign were. So this one, it's actually called old. That actually is from legacy campaigns. So there's actually a lot of numbers that went into that particular campaign. But you will see that from a data perspective, it has a lot of data to it. So you can see that it looks like the trend line, so that's what this blue dotted line is. That shows you across all of time what is the general trend of that particular campaign. And then the yellow shows you what was the actual. So what you would be looking for in this case is if you have the yellow line above that blue line, then that would indicate that at that particular time your cost was a bit higher than what you really overall what you would expect it to be. If it's below that line, then it's actually showing you that you're doing better than the average performance. So where this becomes handy is to help determine whether did you have an extreme growth at the beginning or did you have kind of a tapering out toward the end. Keep in mind that this is not really aggressive normalization in here or regressions or trend analysis. This is simply a line fit. So it's a straight best fit on the trend line. It's not using, for example, a multi-period trend line or an exponential trend line, a power trend line. It's very linear. If you wanted to do really in-depth statistical analysis of this, you probably want to do, view the underlying data and go do that elsewhere. Probably even inside Tableau, because Tableau can do a lot of those sorts of analyses, formal statistics. It's just this dashboard wasn't designed for it. So there you can see some of the stuff there in ads. Let's go take a look at the keywords. I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on this because this one actually works very similarly. It should look pretty familiar. Keyword time analysis. So again, we have total cost up here now because keywords are all done based on the Google search network. What you'll see in here is you'll see all of the campaigns. It's broken down by campaign instead of network. But otherwise, it functions pretty much the same. So again, trend line. In this case, the old network actually looks like what it is performing better than the average trend for a large portion of this time. So that's pretty good. Another thing to notice within Tableau that it facilitates is you can lasso a number of data points. So if you wanted to highlight these, you'll notice that it adds the history lines to all of those. So we could actually come up here, lasso those 2 outliers, come into here, view that underlying data, and then go run with this, see your click-through rates, conversion rates, etc. Let's go take a look at another dashboard. The next one we would want to take a look at is going to be the cumulative average. The reason why this one is important is you will find one of the things that is kind of hard to get within the Adwords interface is the daily average. You certainly can get that number, but it is not easy to get. And that is very important in most cases because you may have a campaign that's been running for the last 2 years and total number of conversions that's generated is very high. But because it's been running for 2 years, that would mask the fact that you may have a well-performing campaign that's only been running for the last month that's actually generating more conversions for you. So it's kind of important to know the difference between those. I'm going to zoom in here on filter out some of those other networks. In this particular situation, the search network seems to be performing well. So you'll notice a few times I'll uncheck those so that I can highlight some data points in here. Let's see, we need to apply this down here. And then you'll notice, for example, when we're looking at here, we have an outlier in our scatter plot here and an outlier in our scatter plot there. We're showing conversions against cost because cost is obviously what managers are very interested in and the organization is interested in, but conversions are what you're trying to drive. So you might think in actuality that these 2 outliers are the same data point, but they are actually not. So this graph allows you to highlight, for example, that you have this campaign running up here that it has generated a total of 120 conversions, but it's been running for quite a long time. Let's compare that to this data point down here where it hasn't been running nearly as long. And it's going to be very hard for you to see, I think, but it's actually this little dot way over here. So in total, this one has only generated a single conversion, but the conversion rate has been quite a bit higher. Let's take a look at a better data point than that. This one is a better data point. So this one's generated 34 conversions in 42 days. So the conversions per day is going to be a lot better than what the total number of conversions are. So here you have the 34, but velocity-wise in generating conversions, this one is actually performing much better. So this allows you to identify, is it consistent? Is my campaign performing consistently, or is it performing better in this short period of time? What I would take away from this is I would look at this and I would say, well, this one seems to be generating a lot more on a daily basis. Let's put some more money into here, maybe increase our bids here because we're going to get more conversions, more bang for our buck when we use this particular combination, which is this particular campaign. Let me set this back up, and then we'll take a look at the next one. So then another thing you're going to want to do sometimes is you're going to want to do either a drill down or a contribution to sort of comparison when it comes to AdWords. So that, for example, let's take a look over here at our data comparison dashboard. If we wanted to look at, in this case, we take a primary set of data and we compare that to another set of data. So you'll see we have primary settings over here. So what we're showing is we're showing conversions by network across all 3 of these networks. This is a drill down if I choose a deeper level of detail. So as an analyst, if I'm looking at my performance, I want to look one level down and I still want to look at conversions. So I can select that. We'll let the screen redraw itself right here. And in this case, because we're actually drilling down, this shows contribution to. So for example, we have our, let's filter back down to Google search. So we will see that in this particular case, we had 42 conversions that were generated sometime around the 18th of December. So which campaigns contributed to those 42? Well, that's what this lower element shows. So it shows that you have these different campaigns that were contributing to those conversions. In this case, they actually are not adding up because, let me set this back, I had filtered down on the network involved. So let me put the all network back together. So the sum total, which would be 12 plus the 14 plus the 41, so about 70-some conversions, a large chunk of those actually came from this one campaign. But as you look over time, you can see that then a new campaign launched. It started contributing toward those conversions. And it looks like 2 campaigns launched at the same time. And so you can see what their contribution was to that. And actually it looks like there's 3 campaigns. And then those campaigns ended, and then a new campaign was launched. So you can see how those contribute. The other way you would use this is to contrast. So we could look at, let's look at network conversions versus network conversion rate. So now we're taking the same breakdown, which in this case is network, and we're saying, give me a comparison between the conversions versus the conversion rate. So if we look at Google search, for example, we'll see that the conversions up here was about 42, but as a conversion rate, that was about 14%, so 14.7%. It's not too bad, but you can notice over here that you sometimes have these spikes in conversion rate, which makes it look like it's really good. So if all you're doing is focusing on conversion rate, which you'll see a lot of literature out there says conversion rate, conversion rate, conversion rate, that's all great. But you will notice that if you look at it up here, even though it's really great as a conversion rate, it was only generating 5 conversions. So the scale of that conversion rate is not enough to really make a dent on things. So if you want to keep that conversion rate and make that 30% conversion rate much more impactful, more focus needs to be put onto that particular network in this particular case. And again, we could filter that down into campaigns as well if we wanted to. So we could, instead of looking at it by network, which is really kind of high level, we could look at it all the way down to the individual ad if we wanted to. So also wanted to take a look also at what we call our best and worst performers. A lot of times you will see if you have a number that's really standing out, you want to know how much higher is that number than the other numbers. So we can actually take a look inside here and see what the relative scale of these are to each other. So for example, let's look on this dashboard. So this is showing based on conversions, which are the best performing combinations across all of the different AdWords components. So if we look at it by campaign, by ad group, by ad size, by ad, by keyword, we can also do it based on location, by device, mobile devices, tablets, computers. Look at this, for example. Computers are performing, almost 9 times better than mobile or tablet devices. So perhaps we should be focusing a bit more effort on getting these numbers higher. Maybe these should be closer, but that's magnitudes higher than the next closest one. Another interesting one to note here, for example, we were looking at ad size. The 728 by 90, which I think is the leaderboard ad size, is performing 3 times better than the next closest ad size. So why spend all of the money that you have with a design agency creating 320 by 50 or 160 by 600 ad sizes when if you focus all of your attention on the 728 by 90, you're going to get a lot better conversions. And we can change this. We can look, clicks generate costs. So let's look at clicks. We could look at cost per action, cost per click, overall click. So you'll notice we're now looking at clicks. So 728. Now it's not magnitude of 3. It's not 3 times the next closest one. So click-wise, there's a lot of clicks happening on a 320 by 50. But there's a lot more conversions happening on the 728 by 90 ad sizes. So with this type of thing, you can ask those more detailed questions. It makes researching those a lot better. There's also, not a lot of times do people want to look at worst performing, but if you do, you certainly can look at that, in which case this will sort it in the opposite order and show you at the top of the list those that perform the worst across all of them. So you'll see that there was a campaign called Vancouver Remarketing was the bottom of the list. So whatever was done there wasn't working overly well. So you do have that. And then I did want to show the last thing is the data tables. So in the data tables, this is really designed, as I said before, to allow you to take these all of this data and go look at it somewhere else. So we basically give you all the possible data that you could be looking at in a single table. You can still do all of Tableau's wonderful things. You can come over on this number, click on the underlying data. You can now take these 101 rows, copy and paste those into Excel, run with that if you needed to do that. You can even paste them into another Tableau workbook and do additional charts if you wanted to inside there. You can do all kinds of quick filtering within here. So you can, for example, take campaign type, actually just take campaign subtype, show quick filter. That shows up. Now if we wanted to look at only remarketing, let's turn that off and only look at remarketing. Well, it looks like we didn't have any, so let's try standard instead. That looks a little bit better. So there are just our standard campaign subtypes versus everything else. So quick filters are useful in data tables. Again, like we said, taking that and going with that into other applications or into other Tableau dashboards becomes very helpful. Let's see, is there anything else we needed to go over? By the way, there are data tables for all of these data sources. So there's a data table for network, campaigns, ad groups, ads, keywords, device, placement. So for display network, if you wanted to see which locations in the display network work best, there's a whole entire data table just designed for that. So again, let's finish up by coming back and looking at the overview again. So keep in mind, everything that we looked at in the last few minutes has been for the analyst, but I wanted to leave you with kind of the higher level dashboard again that shows you overall ROI. That's, again, that's the 832%. So this is really the summary one. This is the dashboard that you would probably want to look at on a weekly basis, something like that. So again, keep in mind as we look in here, that 728 by 90 was performing much better than all the rest of the ad sizes. If I were a marketing manager, I'd probably want to go to my ad agency and say, either spend a lot more money on the 728 by 90 or do a better job on the 320 by 50 because it's not performing as well. So this is the dashboard that you would look at on a regular basis. When you see something unusual like this 728 by 90, or if you see that your costs have really spiked, then you're going to want to go to all of these additional dashboards that we were just showing, drill into those in more and more detail to help you answer the question, what is working, what isn't working, what contributed to that, etc.